So just depending on the monthly traffic, depending on, how big that group gets, it could be 500, $1,000 just spent on retargeting and be well worth it. Hey guys, so in this episode, we're going to talk about budgets. Just the initial kind of most frequently asked question, which is what kind of budget should I have for LinkedIn ads, or what's the minimum budget I should have to be running LinkedIn ads? So we're going to cover that real quick, and really, we'll just jump right into it. It really depends on a lot of different things because the answer is different for almost anyone who asks. So first, you probably need to go through some qualifying questions. And those top questions would be, are you currently running any other paid traffic channels? Are you running Google ads? Are you running Facebook, Instagram? Do you have an email campaign? Also, just, what's your overall website traffic? Do you have, 500 visitors a month? Do you have 5,000? Do you have 30,000? And then what's your overall marketing budget? So obviously the answer would be drastically different for someone who, they don't have any kind of marketing budget. This is their first channel that they're trying to carve out. And their question is, what's the minimum I need to get started? So if that's the question, I'll start there, and then I'll go through the other variations of, if you're a mid-sized company and you have decent spend, but you want to carve out a new channel, what's that look like? So for a lot of Scrappy startups, we'll start there. If you don't have any other paid ad channels and, or you're spending really, really limited amount, maybe Google ads is working for you and you're spending 1,000 or 2 there, the bare minimum that I would say you can get started with LinkedIn ads would be $500 to $1,000 a month. But I'm going to give you a lot of extra information about that because I think just by itself, that might not be the most helpful because, knowing what you're spending or knowing what the entry fee is, you really need to know what the goal line is, or, okay, well, if I'm spending 500 a month, what does that look like? Because here's what you have to think about. So LinkedIn ads, 80% of the results come from the retargeting layer. And the retargeting layer means that you run cold ads, you send them to your website or, a landing page, you track that traffic, and then you get back in front of that group with retargeting ads. So how quickly you get into retargeting is affected by how much you're spending. That makes sense, right? But people don't really think through that. They're like, okay, well, if I can make it work with $500 a month, then next month I'll up it. Well, with $500 a month ad spend, you're not going to get into retargeting by next month. So you might barely get into retargeting by month 3, at which point you might run out of steam and lose faith in LinkedIn ads. But really, you didn't give it a fair shot because you never gave it, you didn't have the mindset that, okay, well, if I only have $500 a month to spend on LinkedIn ads, it's going to take me 3 months to build a retargeting group. And then I need to actually run with that retargeting group and give that a fair shot before I know if LinkedIn's working for me or not. So what I would advise is, go with 1,000. If you're a Scrappy startup, go with 500, go with 1,000. But have that end result in mind, that I actually need to build a retargeting group. And the threshold of that is 300. So you actually have to have 300 site visitors in order to have a large enough retargeting audience to actually use that in a marketing campaign. And then depending on your industry, the initial cost per click. Now I've seen anywhere from $5 all the way up to $60, $70, $80 per click. And so the second thing you really need to think about, and I'm going to go into this deeper on a different episode where I talk about just the timeline, how long until I start getting results. That's another really frequently asked question. And again, it depends on your industry, your offering, your ad spend, and also the other channels that you have in play, because LinkedIn ads is not just something that operates in a silo. So I'll dive into that deeper, but that's the main premise. I mean, you can get started with 500, 1,000. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get into retargeting, depending on the cost per clicks, depending on your budget. But you need to know that that's where the results are actually going to come from. So you need to be patient, give it a fair shot, get into that. But yeah, that's enough to get you into the game. So the next question is, if you are a more established company, you're running, a healthy Google Ads campaign, running Facebook, email, you have SEO going, so you have decent traffic to your website, just something above, we have nothing and we're starting with LinkedIn. So let's say your overall marketing budget is, I don't know, 5 to 10,000. I would say, let's say it's 10 grand. I would give LinkedIn, 20-25% of that budget. I would say 2 grand. If your overall marketing budget is 8 or is 10, I would give LinkedIn 2 grand. And that would almost guarantee that you're going to get into retargeting within, 30, 45, definitely within 60 days. A lot of times you can get there within 30 days with a couple grand budget. So I think that saves you from getting discouraged too quickly, because you actually get into the retargeting, you start to see some traction, and it's enough data too where you can learn and improve faster. Because one of the big things, like I'll talk about in the timeline, is the results. Other than just you're not in retargeting on month 1, the other part is you're just initially collecting data. Like whoever's running your account is just collecting the data, and LinkedIn itself and its algorithm is just collecting data when you start running ads. So the cost per clicks are going to be terrible in month 1. The cost per lead, the cost per conversion, if you're lucky enough to get any, will be terrible. If you're running 4, 5, 6 different ads in the initial cold campaign, ultimately it's going to boil down to just running the top 1 or 2. So that first month or so, that's just experimenting. What text is working best? What image is working best? What combination of image and text? What industry, company size, job roles are most are interacting with my ads the most? There's so many different layers of how to optimize your campaign that in month 1, it's kind of a fact-finding mission. And once you start getting those clicks, once you eventually start getting conversions, LinkedIn's algorithm is smart enough to start favoring certain ads and say, hey, this ad is getting, cost per clicks at $8 per click, and this ad is getting it at $27 per click. I'm going to start, shuffling more of the budget to this ad. So they naturally start helping you out there, and the account manager, if they're worth anything, will naturally start seeing some of those patterns too and say, hey, I'm going to pause these 3 ads. I'm going to run these 3 ads, and then I'm going to process that data and say, okay, this image is working really well. This text or this hook, this call to action seems to be working really well. When we go into month 2 and we're making new ad images, creatives, text, we have a better idea of what's working, what's not working, what to stay away from, what to avoid, and what to dive into. So there's a lot of that, that you just, basing it off the first 30 days, it's just a terrible mindset. And you really need to have the long-term approach. You need to look at it as I'm gathering the data, the intel. But ultimately, one of the things that I believe holds true with almost any client I've worked with is that while LinkedIn ads cost per click, cost per lead is more expensive, and that cold traffic can be a bit discouraging when it's not instantly converting, the quality is there. The quality of that traffic, I believe in it. I believe that is higher quality traffic than Facebook, Instagram, email, a lot of the organic blog readers you're getting. So it's worth the investment. It's worth going out there and driving them to your website, and it's worth creating those retargeting groups to stay in front of. So ultimately, the other side of the coin is, it is scalable. So it's more scalable than Google Ads. So if you're running, I'll give you our company, for example. So we are running about $8,000 or $9,000 a month in Google Ads. Google Ads are amazing for us. So even though we're a LinkedIn ads agency, Google Ads, we get a ton of leads, booked calls, and closed deals from Google Ads. It's hard to beat that high intent bottom of the funnel traffic. I mean, we're a LinkedIn marketing agency, and sure, on LinkedIn ads, you can create compelling copy and images. You can put them in front of people that are most likely to be interested, but they're not searching for you. They're not asking for you. They're not looking for you yet. You're putting ads in front of people who are likely to have a need. And then you're tracking those signs of interest when they click your ad and go to your website, when they visit your company page, when they open the lead gen form, when they watch 50% of your video. You're tracking those intent signals, and then you're retargeting them, staying in front of them for 90 days, 180 days. So you can see that dynamic is different. Whereas on Google, there's people that come to Google and they're typing in LinkedIn marketing agency, done for you LinkedIn lead generation, LinkedIn paid ads agency. So they already aware that they have a problem. They're aware that a solution exists, and they're typing in, they're already at the bottom of the funnel. They're typing in, I need an agency to run my LinkedIn ads. And then we pay to show up in front of that click. So you can't really compare the cost per click of Google ads to, LinkedIn ads. It's just a different ballgame. But I would say that LinkedIn ads enhances those Google ads. So if that's a core foundational part of your strategy is Google ads, you're spending $8,000 like we are. I spend $4 to $5,000 on LinkedIn ads because A, it carves out its own channel, but B, it enhances the spend of my Google ads. And I think that's super important. So when I pay for that person, that click on Google ads, where someone says LinkedIn marketing agency, we show up, they check out our page, we then track them with LinkedIn Insights tag as well, and we retarget them and hit them with LinkedIn ads. And that helps shake out conversions from the Google ads, enhances that spend, and helps LinkedIn stand on its own too. I mean, when you're leveraging retargeting from other channels and you have, so that's one of the big things I would say that comes into play with budget is if your budget for another paid ad channel is really high, like if you're spending we worked with a Series A funded startup who was spending $30,000 on Google ads. So for that company, $10,000 on LinkedIn ads might make sense because there's a lot of paid bottom of the funnel traffic that's going to their website that is worth investing in retargeting on other platforms. And then on top of that, LinkedIn ads can carve out its own channel, add to that traffic, even stir up more Google searches from initiating on LinkedIn. So it really plays off, your overarching marketing strategy. What other channels do you have in play? Even just SEO. If you're driving organic traffic to your website and you just want to start harnessing that, retargeting them on LinkedIn, you could honestly start out with a minimum $300 to $500 a month, just a retargeting budget. Like, don't even bother carving out a cold LinkedIn paid ad strategy. Just retarget your Google ads traffic or your organic traffic and just use LinkedIn for retargeting. That could be $500 a month, and it could actually shake out a lot of good conversions because it's optimizing your other channels. So I guess that's the other side of the coin too. I mean, do you want to carve out a cold channel? Do you want to just be showing up on LinkedIn as a retargeting of your other traffic? If so, then yeah, 500 would actually be good. $10 a day is more than enough to stay in front of an audience, a retargeting audience of about 2,000 to 3,000. So just depending on the monthly traffic, depending on, how big that group gets, it could be $500, $1,000 just spent on retargeting and be well worth it. You could really shake out a good amount of conversions from that. So I think that is the main answer to that question. And that would be the last thing I would add is that LinkedIn's Insights tag on your website tracks the traffic, not just of, traffic that LinkedIn ads sends to your website. It sees all the traffic, and you can chop that up, segment however you want. You could just retarget your Google ads traffic or your Facebook traffic or your organic traffic. You can make rules and say, I don't, if they came from this channel and they looked at this page, or they looked at this service offering, but not this one. And you could create little campaigns based on what they did or didn't visit on your website. So there's a lot you can do there, but all of that kind of goes into how much you should spend. Short answer is bare minimum 500 or 1,000. 2,000 to 3,000 is a decent, healthy start if you're going to give it a fair shake. But lots of well-established companies, if you're spending 20 grand a month on paid ads, LinkedIn could be 25% of that budget. So easily 5 grand, and just goes from there. Right. I appreciate it.